Thanks for your time, Coach Higgins. I appreciate it. We'll start off with the softball. Just kind of generally, how do you grade your unit of receivers through the first 6 games this season?
Well, it is a young group, obviously. We've got a long ways to go. Every day we're working at the fundamentals. As I share with this group, we're trying to establish a foundation now, a foundation so that they can understand A, assignments, B, techniques, C, an understanding of the game, both from a mental and physical standpoint. So every day we just try to keep building and hope that we don't take many steps backwards. There are a lot of young guys that are learning and have to continue to learn. So we've still got a long ways to go. Thank goodness we've been running the ball well. Thank goodness Sam has been operating effectively at the QB position. So I'm just hoping that we can continue to grow each day.
A bright spot early has been your duo at the slot, Jacory and Taylor. How surprised were you to kind of see them grab the mantle, that position, so quickly this season?
Well, Jacory, of course, has the most experience. This is his 4th year. So we've been together, obviously, prior to this for 3 full years in meetings every day. So I knew that he had a good understanding of our offense. He's worked on technique now for 3 years. So I actually thought that he would be very successful. And thank goodness he's made some big plays in critical situations. Taylor Marin has really done a great job in the offseason. He's learned how to bend better. He's learned how to change direction effectively. And his hands have always been very good. So it certainly has been nice being able to split time with both of those guys, which is so important because of the speed at which we operate from an offensive standpoint.
Kevin, with so many young guys there, you need leadership from somewhere. Where does that come from with your guys?
Yeah, Greg. Well, losing Sage certainly hurt us, not only on the field with his performance, but obviously his leadership as well. And then you look around the room and Scotty's gone and Kendall's gone, and there's a vacancy in terms of guys that are leaders and have been in a position to effectively do that. So we're having to do that ourselves for the most part. Each day try to develop time with them so they understand what that means. But it's been really about just them getting that foundation established, being able to get lined up effectively, demonstrate that they understand what they need to do to be successful. And of course, so many of them are playing at this level where every week is an ACC game. That in itself takes a major adjustment. So we're still working on the leadership aspect every day.
Do you foresee somebody taking that mantle of the group you have?
Well, actually, Jacory's been working hard at that. He's not a guy that's overly vocal. He's more of a laid-back guy. So I've been visiting with him a lot on just making his presence felt amongst the room. The one nice thing with Jacory, like if a guy drops a ball, he's not afraid to get on him. He's not afraid to encourage guys. I think he's more concerned, however, about himself, keeping his weight up, effectively doing what he needs to do to be successful, that he doesn't almost have enough energy to put into other guys. But slowly but surely, he's learning how to do that.
On Jacory, I've seen where he's like the top-rated slot receiver in the entire country right now. His emergence been, I know we've talked about a little bit, but he's excelling at a level that's, near the top of the country. That's remarkable, isn't it?
No, it is. And I'll tell you, he has a very good skill set. I mean, he's got length, which typically we have not had at the slot position. So his catch radius is so much better than other slots that we've had. He has very good speed, which I don't think people realize, and his hands have just gotten so much better, and he's a lot more confident. So I think all of that has allowed him to step up in the spotlight now and make plays. And obviously, when you lose the amount of talent we had on the outside, he also understands that he's got to pick up the slack inside, or else we're not going to be successful, and he's been able to do that.
You're a team that features the slot receiver and have had some very successful guys come through this system already. And Greg Dortch and Kendall Hinton and Tabari Hines. But it's not that he was just put in the role and he's doing more than just doing what he needs to do in the system. He's excelling. I mean, he's really showing everything he can do at this point, right?
Yeah, no question. And obviously, for us to continue to be successful, he will need to do that. And I think he's working hard at continuing to learn his craft, to look at things he needs to do better and continue to work on those. And if he can stay playing at this high level, certainly that's going to allow us to be more successful as an offense.
Kevin, with Donovan and Nolan, their catch percentages based on targets is probably not where you would like it. Is that just a maturity thing, or as they get more comfortable in the offense? Is there anything you can put your finger on that'll help them get maybe more of those catches on those targets?
Yeah, experience, Kelly, is what I would say. I think back to Scotty Washington in his first 2.5 years. I think Alex Bachman, the conversations that we had around Bachman and Scotty Washington, and are they going to be able to play at this level? Are they going to be consistent catching the football? And that's where we are right now with Donnie and also with Nolan. They just haven't been in the fire long enough. Obviously Donovan played at the end of last year, but when he stepped in, he didn't know what he didn't know, and he was just out there, a kid from Mount Airy, running around. Well, now Sage is gone. There's a lot more pressure. It is real. And he's having to learn the game from a different perspective now. So that's going to have an effect on you. So I think his deal is, and both of them, is they just have to get that practice experience, have to get game experience. They have to understand the nuances of the game. And our offense is complicated. It's complex. And it takes time to be able to learn that and get the details down. And that's what we're trying to get them to understand right now.
Where were you guys with recruiting? Where in the cycle are you, and what did you learn from not being able to go out on the road all spring?
Well, with the 21 class, we're signing 3, and we have 3 commitments. So everything has been good. We received those commitments March, April, May. During that time period, we've been Zooming with them. We've been staying in touch with them. All 3 are doing fine, doing well. Excited to get them here. So that's the class of 21. Now the class of 22. Once I get off this phone call now, I'll be doing a virtual tour with my top receiver from the class of 22 next. So we're working hard now on this 22 class, trying to provide for them an understanding of what Wake Forest is all about, starting with ourselves, then the facility, and then obviously hoping that we can get them here at some point in time, which obviously won't be until the spring.
Have you become a master of the virtual tour by now?
I wouldn't call myself a master, but I've certainly improved and gotten much, much better at it. I've got to make sure that the nutrition center is open and make sure I know how to sneak into the weight room if it's locked up. So I've got all those things down right now.
Knowing your positive attitude and approach to coaching, I have to wonder, when you got the news 2 to 3 weeks before the season kind of came to be put together, that Sage was not going to be with you guys. What was your initial reaction, and how long did it take you to kind of work through a game plan of how to navigate a post-Sage life at Wake Forest?
Right. Well, great question. First of all, Sage and I spent an awful lot of time together from April up until he left. And what we did during the off season is once a week we looked at, all the great NFL receivers and just looked at technique. And all we did is just talk about technique, and looked at all of his plays from last year and critiqued them, talked about his stance, talked about his working off the line of scrimmage for his releases, top of the breaks, all the fundamentals that you need to do. So we spent a lot of time during that time period in anticipation of the season and the type of year that he was going to have. And then when we received the news, we had a conversation, obviously, with him and his mom and dad. It was a long conversation, and they expressed their concerns concerning COVID. And obviously, we respect that decision. We respect what they said. but at the same time, it certainly hurt. And I think number one, because of the relationship I had with Sage, it's like, you lost somebody that you spent a lot of time putting that effort into. At the same time, you understand that everybody's got to make tough decisions in life, and that was one that he made. So I would say it took a couple of weeks, and immediately, of course, it was focusing back on the current group and the dynamics of that room. And our room completely changed with the exit of Sage, which really, that was one thing you never really anticipated or thought about. I spent so much time thinking about these young guys and how long it would take for them to mature and that whole process. All of a sudden, Sage is out of the picture, and now it's, ooh, this is going to be a completely different scenario.
Along those lines, talking about the young guys, how are guys like Jamal Banks and Keyshawn Williams coming along? Can we expect to see some meaningful reps from them down the stretch of the season? I know that you've been a little bit thin on the outside, with the loss of Sage, and then A.T. Perry's been a little bit beat up too.
Right. Well, in terms of the younger guys, Keyshawn is a guy that we talked about early on, and he certainly has not let us down. He has all the tools to be a special player here at Wake Forest. And each week we've put him on a new special teams. This past week we had him deep on the kickoff return team. This week we're putting him on another special team, just trying to get him out on the field. He was covering punts for us 2 weeks ago and made one heck of a play. He is a talented player. Size-wise, he is what you're looking for in a slot. So he's not an outside guy right now. He's an inside guy. And with Jaquari and with Taylor, obviously that's where our strength is right now. Jamal Banks is another guy that I like a great deal. In high school, he played he was hurt his junior year, only played 3 or 4 games. He ended up committing to us that summer when he came to our camp and just did an outstanding job. Then he transferred to St. Francis, hurt his ankle early on and didn't put up a lot of numbers there. However, he's a guy that really is just growing into his body. He's about 210, 215. He was an outstanding basketball player and had dreams of playing basketball early on in high school. His hands are outstanding. He's got to grow into his body and learn how to move more effectively in order to get to where he needs to go. But his off season will be critical for him because I think he'll be very good. But he's got to work on a lot of things in the off season, which he'll have a chance to do. Having said that, the last 2 weeks he's really come on. He's done a better job picking up the offense. He had over 3.5 here his first semester, which is nice. And he's getting his technique down. He's starting to master it better. And by the end of the season, there's a chance we could see him at the end, playing more meaningful reps if we should need that. But we're really excited about those 2 young guys.
Does Keyshawn realize, I know every player wants to be on the game every snap probably. They never think that they're tired. But does he realize that he made a big impact with that punt, down in that punt? Does he realize how big of a play that was?
Yeah, I think he does. When you have a lot of guys coming up to you and the social media writing about it, I think he gets that, and I think he thrives on that type of stuff as well. This guy is a tremendous competitor. I watched him play basketball as well as Jamal, and just to watch him compete. When we saw him, we said, you know what, this is the kind of kid that's going to fit in well into our program. I think he had a commitment to Kent State at the time, and it was really late in the process. It was last October that I went to his high school and met him really for the first time, and within 4 weeks he ended up committing to us on his visit for a game. And his skill set is just better than we actually thought. So we're excited about him. And the other part of him is just mentally he's been able to adapt to college life. Some guys, it just takes a lot longer. He's one of those guys that gets it. He gets the academics. He gets how to do things the right way. He's got a good work ethic. So all that has been very, very positive.
Has the recruiting piece been hard for you, just not being able to go out and do your normal evaluation schedule? And you didn't get in the spring, now you're not getting to see games, and even some places are still not playing. Has that been hard for you as you guys try to move into 2022, 20, even 23 kids, starting to look at them a little bit?
Yes, it is very, very hard. And this cycle is when we're really going to feel that. The three guys that we signed, one of them at least visited campus. We had a chance to see them. We had a chance to get a lot of, individual film on them to get the evaluation. This cycle, we will have hopefully more time if we can get out in the spring to see these guys. But as of right now, not having met any of the class of 22, not have seen them, in action live, not going to the school, visiting with coaches and people in the area makes it extremely hard. So this next cycle will be very interesting in terms of the evaluation process.
To follow up on that, that's a really good question, Kelly. To follow up on that, Coach, I know basketball coaches, they get to watch a lot of events virtually. There's a lot of like showcase events with 4, 5 to 10, 12 games in one site. They can watch a lot of kids on these virtual events. Are you guys just relegated to highlight tapes at this point?
For the most part, yes. But the one thing that we can do, Les, is we can, for example, you can get Keyshawn and say, Keyshawn, send me you with your quarterback running 25 different routes, full speed, balls thrown left and right. And then you're going to have an individual workout deal on him. And you can get, as long as it's being done correctly, you can get a fairly good eval from that. Certainly it's not game tape, but then you put that back with the season. And, there are enough kids that are playing. Unfortunately, in the state of North Carolina, you don't have an opportunity to evaluate. Virginia, you don't have a chance to evaluate. The state of South Carolina is playing, so we're able to evaluate a lot of guys there. So obviously the parts of the country that have football, you can get that game film evaluation. The North Carolina kids would be really hard because at this point, you didn't have many of them in camp, number one. If you did, they're bigger, stronger, faster. Now they're different kids than they were 2 years ago during that cycle when you had them. There's no game film on them. So now you're asking them to get individual workouts, which is going to make it really, really difficult.
What's been the most challenging piece of this season for you, Coach Higgins?
You know what? I would say this for sure is not having, for example, not having the kids over at the house. I said this to Dave like 4 weeks ago. I said, boy, we just had our best meeting of the year. It was like a Thursday morning before Virginia Tech. And one of the players, I think it was AT, said, hey, Coach, do you think I could beat Donnie in basketball? Which got us into our backyard games from the summertime. And when we had that summertime where we had the kids over, we played hoops, we went to the pool, we competed, we did a bunch of different things. You got to know them in a different way. And you brought the group together because you spent so much time with these guys. Well, now we come back. We had no interaction. Keyshawn doesn't know Donovan from AT. He spent very little time with him. We've had very little group activities because you can't, obviously, with COVID. So we start our meetings, and the meetings consist of Coach Higgins telling these guys what to do, what to do. So it makes it hard, rules without relationship equals rebellion. You learn that with growing up with kids in a family. You got to have a relationship, and when you don't have that valuable time, it makes it hard then to ask these guys to do all the things necessary to be successful. So I find myself going back and trying to, find mutual things that are in common, that you can break the ice, they can get these guys comfortable, and that they can spend time around one another. And again, when you don't have leaders returning in the room, that's what makes it harder. I've had more individual conversations with players about just the challenge of football at this level, the mental aspect of it, the physical part with these young guys in isolation. And that's been, one of the most challenging things for me is there hasn't been another upper class guy that can come in and help in the process. It's been every other day. It seems like something else pops up that you're trying to deal with a situation. And that's why it's really incredible what these guys have done up to this point in time without having the group structure that goes into being a successful team. It's incredible. So they've done a great job of handling it. And of course, Coach Clausen's done a great job of managing the entire environment here.
So what did you tell AT?
Well, I said, AT, first thing that you have to show me is, can you beat Donovan in one-on-one? We had to set up after last season, after the bowl game. We said, okay, we're going to the gym in January. Pick the night. I'll be there. I want to see Donnie and AT one-on-one. Who's going to win? They both tell me they're both going to win, right? And everybody in the room picks up on that. So that went for like a month and a half. It never occurred. COVID arrives, and then it ends. So I'm saying we're not talking about anybody else until I see you and Donnie play 101 through 11, win by 2. Then we can talk more about that. And then, which led to Isaiah talking about, you know, the backyard when he got schooled by me, and then et cetera, et cetera. So
I was going to say, tell the truth. You're just upset that you couldn't have him over to show off your 3-point shooting.
that's part of it.
So you don't have a personal pick yet at this point? You don't have a favorite in this matchup?
Between those two?
Yeah.
No, because AT won't play defense and Donnie doesn't always go hard. So it's just, you got to wait and see on that.
Anything else, guys?
Thanks, Kevin.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.
All right,
Thanks,
guys. Good to see you.
Appreciate it. Nice to see you.
Sounds good. Thanks.